Hello, everyone. Welcome to CXO Spice. CXO Spice is a platform for thought leaders who share their point of view on innovation and explain how to make it happen in the real world. I'm your host, Helen Yu, and today's topic is the Agentic enterprise era. I am grateful for the opportunity to partner with Salesforce. Our special guest today is Aaron Agrias, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Financial Services at Salesforce. Hello, Aaron. Welcome to CXO Spice.
Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, me too. So before we dive into this important topic today, let's have you introduce yourself and your role at Salesforce.
Sure, yes. My name is Erin Agrios. I have been at Salesforce for almost 17 years now, and I've had a really interesting journey. I've moved, many different places with Salesforce in those years, and started in customer success, actually, working with customers in insurance. And over those years, I've kind of moved into a product role where now I manage the product portfolio for our financial services business. But I always think back to my roots in customer success because I learned very early on that, our customers are really at the center of everything. They are successful. We are successful is how I like to think about it. And it's been an incredible journey at Salesforce. I've had such an interesting time here. I know in speaking with you, you followed Salesforce closely and worked in Salesforce. We've grown so much, and the change within our industry and our company has been incredible. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. Congratulations on that journey, right? So what do you do in spare time?
So I said roots, right? I remember my roots being in customer success. Well, I actually, my family and I have two small boys. They're 5 and 8, and we moved up to Connecticut a couple of years ago. And so I always like to say that I raise free-run children. We have 30 acres. I have a huge farm. And I think it's an interesting balance. I mean, technology, and people often ask me, I've been at Salesforce for 17 years. That's very unusual, and it is. The company continues to change. And so I think, I'm looking out now my window to my massive garden. I have like hundreds of dahlias that we plant, and chickens and ducks and geese. And
oh my goodness.
yeah, it's like my Zen moment, I think, between my calls.
I can't wait to talk more about that, right? That would be another conversation, another day. And that's just fascinating, Aaron. I'm so glad we have you here today. I love the leaders who don't just do laser focus on tech. They have other things outside of tech they work on as well, and with the family as well, right?
Yes. I was checking my fingernails before I came because they were in the dirt, so don't worry.
I love that. Salesforce just released this Agentic Enterprise Index report that caught my eyes, right? It reveals that agent creation surged 119% in just 6 months, with financial services leading the way with 105% monthly growth. So what's driving the acceleration in financial services?
When I saw that, I thought, you know what? Originally, I was surprised, but I thought, you know what? No wonder my teams are so busy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I think when AI kind of came to the forefront, we heard people saying, "Oh, there's no way financial services, they're regulated. It'll take them so long to adopt." And as you said, I mean,
that's what I think as well too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was so surprised, 105% growth. But honestly, I think if you think about financial services, like services, the way that banks and insurance companies have been able to scale is by adding people for years.
Yeah.
And I was actually with a customer the other day, and they said, we need to change, and we need to change fast because I've got a 100-year-old mainframe. And it's slowing me down, and they're doing like leaps and bounds. And we keep hearing this word, like, how do we leapfrog out of that? So I'm joyously surprised by that statistic, and I can see it in the market today. One of the things that we see a lot is just this rise in customer expectations. I think customers and consumers are being set by some of the consumer applications, this idea of like highly personalized experiences that are consistent across every channel. And so I think banks and insurance companies are really being held to a higher standard. And traditionally, it's been very hard for them to do. But now, with this unlock of AI, they can start to really personalize the experience across other channels. I think the other thing that we're hearing too is labor pressure.
Yeah.
I was with an insurance company the other day, and they said like the insurance agents, there's not enough of them to serve the clients that we have anymore. And I'm hearing the same thing for financial advisors. And so
Right.
you think about like labor pressure and the ability for these customers to really want this highly personalized experience. It's really kind of having these financial services firms look at how they scale the organization. And I think this idea of digital labor and helping organizations scale is just really prime in this moment right
Yeah,
now.
it's also a constant changing of the regulatory requirements for financial services, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the regulatory requirements are changing. And we've actually been doing a lot of work in terms of compliance and regulation to understand. I mean, there's over 200 regulatory changes a day sometimes.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
in some jurisdictions, it's crazy.
Mhm.
Uh, Actually, you know what? Sorry. It's 200 regulatory changes a month,
Months. Okay.
is what we're hearing.
That's still a lot, right? Yeah.
That's still a lot. And so the idea that you can AI, I think a lot of the examples that we see are really front end facing. But if you think about even some of the ability to have these companies understand and ingest
Mhm.
regulatory changes at scale and be able to implement them really quickly, there's lots of opportunity there from an AI perspective as well.
No doubt. When you are a global company, even more complex. Imagine, the regulatory requirement might be different in Germany than the one in US. So you have
Yeah.
to be very mindful about your operation, right?
Yeah. So I'm not surprised to see that change.
Yeah, likewise, these market forces, right, with perfect sense, and it's like a perfect storm. Now, when we look at where this is actually playing out in practice, what are some of the top use cases where customers are seeing success with AI agents so far?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I get asked that a lot. And I think, you know, in meeting with some of the boards and CEOs, we often see like, here are my 25 or 30 different use cases that we want to do. And what I've learned over the last maybe 6 months is there's a couple in financial services that people are really starting to lean into. And I can kind of share those with you. The first one is around the relationship manager.
Hmm.
And I'm using that broadly because if you think about like commercial banker or a financial advisor, somebody who's like a high touch relationship manager, generally we're finding that those folks are spending anywhere between 40 to 60% of their time on like non-advisory or client tasks.
Mhm.
And so this idea of client engagement and making that as productive as possible for these users has been a real big area of focus. So think about like, I'm getting ready to meet Helen and I need to prepare for that meeting.
Mhm.
Customers like RBC are spending about 60 minutes per client
Yeah.
just getting ready.
I
And
can relate to that, right? I serve as board director for a few companies. Every
yeah,
time prior to the board meeting, there's so much due diligence you have to do, right?
yeah, exactly. So there's one. And then also I think, because that's like a good summarization use case, and this
Mhm.
kind of speaks to like where AI has been going super fast, is it's almost so that's helpful and AI can summarize information. We all have been using that in our daily lives. But this idea that AI, like humans and agents, like this augmented AI assistant, then can actually take action for you. We're seeing, and again, going back to RBC and we've got some other customers doing this, the post-meeting follow-up,
Mm.
you know, going back into the office and saying, okay, I talked with Helen about, you know, this credit card or this loan because she's expanding her business. And
Mhm.
I'm going and putting all of that information in and going and talking to other teams. We now have these digital assistants that can
Mhm.
take the meeting summarization notes and take action on all of that information.
That's so important, right? Remember all the days we carried a notepad wherever we go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now we can just have an app, right? Turn everything like automatically.
Yeah. And it's funny because like, and I'm still one of those.
Yeah.
But with some of the capabilities we have now, you can kind of snap a photo and they can take that unstructured data. So, I still like pen and paper. Some of our customers still do, but you can also do it through digital. But the power of these agents together with humans, I think, are really driving business value. And I think we're starting to see that now at scale.
Mhm. These use cases are so compelling, and but financial services aren't like any other industry. So what unique advantages does financial service have, and that what challenges are specific to this industry?
Yes, yeah. So I get often asked if everybody's running towards the same AI use cases. So, the relationship manager or this idea of like giving every client a personal banker, a personal digital banker. If everybody's doing that, what's the competitive differentiation?
Yeah.
And I think quite simply, it's data. These
Mhm.
financial services customers have so much data, and it's amazing data. It's like transactional data. They know your spending habits. It's amazing, but it's all been siloed and locked away in these, 100-year-old mainframes and all that. And so to me, it's being able to kind of unlock that data. And in my visual brain, I think about it kind of like flowing seamlessly through the organization, which and I think, even in your experience too, you see, like large data stores with
Mhm.
locked away data. And I think if we can kind of free that and serve that up to both the humans and the agents, that's where you start to get your competitive differentiation is how the way that you're using that data and the way that you're taking action on that data, I think is one. I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
the second part of your question was like what's different in financial services,
Yeah.
maybe?
What challenges you see in or specific?
Challenges. Yeah, I mean, I think quite like obviously it's very highly regulated
Mhm.
and compliance is front and center in all of this. And so some of the challenges that we've seen that we've been able to kind of push past with some of our customers, again, I use RBC as an example. We're working with CaixaBank, which is a large bank in Spain.
Mhm.
Um, the idea of making these agents highly like relevant and very highly like the responses need to be spot on. They have to be like 95% accurate, right? Or 100% accurate. So there's a lot of testing that goes on in terms of where is the data and where's the right data to make sure that people feel comfortable and there's this idea of trust in the responses that they have.
Mhm. That's interesting because I really implemented chatbot at Global Bank back in the days, 8 years ago. At the time, internal alignment was a big thing, right? One of the really major challenge, getting everyone aligned on what use case we're going to implement first, which division will benefit from that first. Have you seen that as well for financial services?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're describing is exactly what we're seeing too. I think there's a first part around kind of trusting the technology. But I was with a room full of financial services leaders across insurance and banking the other day, and it was really relevant to kind of talk about, stood up and said, that we trust that the technology can do it. We've had it in POC. We know the technology can do it, but it's really about how we drive the change in the organization and really drive trust with our employees to want to use those tools. And then the other piece of it too, I think there's a big change coming in the way that the compliance officers and the risk officers, security and legal, the types
Mhm.
of questions that they need to ask in this new environment.
Mhm.
So there's been lots of conversations around that too. So I think, as you said, it's kind of, yes, the technology is changing and that's obviously the enabler, but the organization needs to come along the way.
Mhm. You mentioned a very important point about trust and compliance, right? The Agentic Enterprise Index revealed something interesting about human escalations, as a matter of fact. It states that escalation to humans increased from 22% to 32%, even as AI improved. So how do
Mhm.
you balance that automation with the human touch that financial customers expect?
Yes, I think I was surprised, but I was actually pleasantly surprised to hear that the escalations went up.
Me
Because,
too. Yeah.
yeah, because if you think of, I mean, how many times have you been on the phone and it's like, 10 minutes until you talk to somebody? You might drop off, right?
Every week I have that experience, right? You get frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're all kind of trained now to say like there should be just a better way. I mean, I think if you look at some of the consumer applications, right, it's just the service is digital and it's fast. And so I think what ends up happening, and you can see banks like Salmon's Financial that say we're going to use voice AI to handle, a lot of our incoming calls. And
Mhm.
so if you think about what that does in freeing up the human capital that you have, they can handle the escalations because
Mhm.
there's going to be escalations and there's going to be things within the
Mhm.
compliance framework that you have where
Mhm.
a digital agent can't do something. And so I think going back to your stat, like that, we should be looking at that and saying, I think those are good trends
Mhm.
where we're actually getting the escalations to the right people or agents, at the right time.
Absolutely. Also, when I may not have time to call during their office hour, right? If
Exactly.
some of the digital agent can handle my request outside of their business hour, I don't mind interacting with a bot. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And we've been talking to some customers actually about this like agentic enterprise and really thinking about like what does it mean to be an agentic bank or a carrier. And this idea of like always on is really interesting and I think touches on your point. Like if it's 12 o'clock at night, that might be your time where you need to, take action on something.
Exactly. That's a sophisticated approach to human AI collaboration, right? Speaking of outcomes, many organizations focus heavily on cost savings today,
Mhm,
but with company achieving this significant handle time reduction, how should
mhm.
financial institutions be thinking about AI agent ROI beyond the cost savings?
I think it's such a good question. I think early on that was the narrative. Oh, we're going to save cost. But if you speak to, any CIO, and maybe not any CIO, but a lot of CIOs or CIOs or CEOs that I talk to, the narrative is really about there's only so much cost takeout that you can do in a business.
Mhm.
But when you think about growth, we should be thinking about that as like that's limitless. And
Mhm.
so this pivot back to growing the business has really been front and center in the conversations. And I think a really good example of that, if you take our example of the service center and the calls,
Mhm.
right? Let's say, and we have some customers aiming to do about 80% of their call volume should be
Mhm.
handled through like a digital AI voice channel.
Mhm.
So then what does that do to those service reps? Well, it allows them to, yes, handle the escalations, but their time isn't going to only be taken up by escalations. With AI today, we can actually quickly retrain those people or reskill those people
Mhm.
to focus on like proactive outreach. And proactive outreach could be like this idea of anticipatory service,
Mhm.
right? Or it could be tracking down, there's about 20 to 35% like deposits kind of sitting out in the ecosystem.
Mhm.
Imagine those folks could focus on that.
Mhm.
What could that do for the business?
That's just, I really love the broader business outcome thinking, right? And then also, I think I love the point you made about retrain, reskill people. We're not just
Mhm.
letting go of people and then automate everything,
Yeah.
right? So, but implementing this, as you know, especially at scale, requires significant organizational change. And then, especially in the regulated industry, like
Mhm.
what organizational change or culturally or structurally are necessary to become an agentic enterprise while maintaining compliance.
Yeah. I think the biggest and trust at Salesforce is our number one value. I think one of the things that we need to make sure as leaders is that there's a trusted and kind of like safe environment. So not only the technology is trusted, but there's an opportunity for people to try things. And I think when I talk to my own team, I said, go and try the latest AI tools and like what are you using in your day to day
Mhm.
to help augment yourself?
Yeah.
And I mean, I use Gemini and we use Cursor a
Mm.
lot.
Okay.
And it's amazing just to see these tools start to be integrated.
Mhm.
And we've started to see, and I've seen some customers as well, like showcase different individuals who are using tools to kind of augment themselves. And I think that helps kind of bring everybody along for the change. And that's where you continuously hear us say, it's not just about the AI agents. It is about humans and agents working together. And what I've seen some of our customers doing is really showcasing some of the use cases where that partnership, like the relationship manager one I talked about at RBC, really helps make that human a better human and kind of showcasing that. And so I think there's a lot of work that we can do as leaders to kind of build the trust in the organization that this is actually going to help people.
Mhm. That's such an important mindset, right? When you can create a culture of, I say culture of experimenting, culture of innovation, allows people create a safe environment for people to just go out and try, and then be willing to share what they have done with everyone. And that's where innovation that sparks innovation, more innovation, and then
Yeah.
really allows people to feel comfortable. I would say to share their vulnerability, right? That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you start getting this flywheel as you
yeah.
described. Yeah, it's cool.
Exactly. And then these organizational considerations are really critical for successful implementation. But as we look ahead, Aaron, what do you see AI agents heading in financial services over the next few years, and how should the industry prepare?
Yes, we spend a lot of time thinking about that. You spend time in the here and now and building the technology that, is going to help now, but we've been spending time thinking about how in financial services we talk a lot about building trust and building, customer advocacy, right?
Mhm.
And you hear different loyalty programs and things like that. And I think one of the things that we'll probably see in the near term is, more orchestration between agents to help get like middle and back office work done. Like
Mhm.
there's a huge amount of transformation there, I think, as you think about like loan operations, loan servicing. There's many different systems that are disconnected now. I think that's kind of near term where we see, yes, there's going to be definitely front office gains. And I think lots of people are diving into that now, but kind of thinking about that middle and back office efficiency. But if you think even a little bit further out, and I mentioned kind of customer loyalty and customer advocacy,
Mhm.
imagine how banks and insurance companies need to change when they're maybe not dealing with humans like you or I, but
Mhm.
when we are effectively hiring our own agents to go and find the best mortgage rate for us based
Mhm.
on what that agent knows or about my own portfolio.
In
Or
real time.
exactly. That's gonna have to be in real time. But
Yeah.
like imagine how that changes the relationship with the bank,
Yeah.
It's really interesting to think about, agents to agents, not only internally within a bank or insurances companies four walls, but your humans now
Mhm.
maybe are less interacting. So it's something that we've been thinking about because it starts to turn maybe loyalty programs, it changes them. It also your product strategy as an organization also needs to
Right.
shift.
Speaking of insurance policies, sometimes even though I have the policy with the same company, they can't pull the home insurance and car insurance all into one, right? Sometimes it's really challenging. So imagine you have an agent who can pull all the information for you during the conversation
Yeah.
in real time, right? That's really powerful.
It's really powerful. Yeah. And I think it's definitely where things are going, like this idea of like personal AI assistance.
Wow.
Um, but it's fascinating to think about, and that's one of the cool things about being in technology.
I love that too. Yeah. Aaron, thank you so much for sharing these invaluable insights. I feel like I can have another hour's conversation with you, but we'll save that maybe for Dreamforce
For
upcoming.
Dreamforce, I'd love it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. The 105% monthly growth in AI agent in financial services indicates a fundamental industry transformation. And here are the four key takeaways from our conversation today. Number one is the financial service AI agent boom is real and accelerating. The financial services lead all industries, right? It's a pleasant surprise in AI agent adoption, driven by sector's data-rich environment, regulatory documentation needs, and customer service complexity. The
Mm-hmm.
full-scale transformation is happening now, right? Your example is a RBC example,
RBC.
right?
Yeah.
With relationship manager that really resonated with me. And then number two is a human AI partnership is evolving. Despite AI improvements, human escalation increased from 22% to 32%, indicating that successful AI implementation isn't about replacing human. It's really about creating more meaningful human touch points along their journey, right? The goal is elevating human interaction to higher value activities while AI handles routine tasks. The few
Hmm.
examples you gave about loan management or, operations, those really resonate with me too. And then number three is the customer employee adoption is driving organizational change. I love the example you're giving, how you create a culture of experimenting different things, allow employees to go out and try it and then share their experience. And in the report, it says 94% consumer choosing AI agents when available, and 65% monthly growth in employee interactions with AI agents. So organizations are being pulled toward agentic model by both customer demand and workforce evolution. This dual pressure is accelerating transformation.
Absolutely.
Lastly, right, is very important is regulatory compliance as a competitive advantage. While other industries can experiment more freely, financial services must balance innovation with strict regulatory requirements. Success in becoming agentic enterprise depends on building compliance into the AI agent architecture from the ground up, not retrofitting it later. I love
Hmm.
the fact that you have that from the very beginning of the journey, working with your customer hand in hand to
Yes.
ensure, right, not only technology being trusted, but the whole process is being trusted as well.
Hmm.
So, Erin, it has been such a pleasure speaking with you, and thanks again for sharing your insights on the Agentic Enterprise. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Stay hungry, stay bold, and stay grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.